Hi and welcome. This is my review of 1923, the Yellowstone origin story, which stars Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. Also in this show will be Timothy Dalton and a few other folks that you may or may not have heard of that are in it, but it has a really good cast. The show I found anyway. The acting seems to be very good from the people in it, and of course Harrison Ford plays the patriarch of the Dutton family, while Helen Mirren clearly is the head woman in Yellowstone. Um, Both are superb actors. The show opens up with Helen Mirren's character Kara killing someone. A bit surprising. She shoots them with a shotgun. Seems to be chasing some guy. Not sure how a woman of her age is chasing someone through the forest with a shotgun. But it is shown. And of course, Harrison Ford, the usual tough guy that he is in movies, plays the same type character in this show. A lot older than I've seen Harrison Ford in a long time. He is 80 years old in this. He is once again ahead of the Ranchers Association and the usual quarrel at this time period between the cattlemen and the sheep herders. And we can see him facing off here with the sheep herder and telling him basically to take his sheep and don't put it on cattled land and eat the grass because it's the 1920s. They have drought in the West, and so there isn't enough grass to feed both the beef cattle and, of course, the sheep. And so you have this natural battle, basically range war, that breaks out between the cattlemen and the sheep herders. And this, over the two episodes that I've seen and have been released so far, this reaches a boiling point in the episodes where we have actual shooting at each other take place. And Harrison Ford, being the tough guy that he is, enforces Western justice on the sheep herders. At the same time, we have Spencer Dutton here, who we are introduced to. He is a hero of World War I, and he stays away from America. We see him pictured in Africa, where he is working to protect groups of English people and others that are visiting Africa on tours, to look at lions and things like that. And what we get as a glimpse of his life, we see him actually shooting lions and leopards, not for sport, but to protect the people that are there visiting Africa. So that's what he does for a living. And it's pretty. I actually really like his character. It's very deep. He suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. And then we have another character that we are introduced to, Mrs. Rainwater, who is a young girl. This is her here, a young girl, Native American, who is literally thrown into a boarding school, they call it. I believe it's called a Baptist boarding school, where they have nuns that pretty much beat up and torture the Native American girls. Really horrible horrible scenes. And I don't mean the acting or anything like that. I mean just horrible what takes place in the scenes. Very well acted, just horrible picture of how awful American history can be, especially when it shows the brutalization of the poor Native Americans. Very hard-hitting truth in what's shown. Very, very, if you have a weak heart or anything, you may not want to watch this part of the show. It's just very hard-hitting, and in some cases could be hard to watch. Spencer, they go back to again, and him in Africa protecting the English folks on their tour. Like I said, he's kind of like he reminds me of like an Alan Quatermain character. For those of you that have read King Solomon's Mines or seen the movie King Solomon's Mines or heard of it, he's that kind of character that he strikes me as. Very adventurous, very brave, really a man's kind of man, a hard drinker, that kind of person, tough. And he's, just there doing his job. Once again, like I mentioned, he has post-traumatic stress, or what they would have called back then shell shock, from being in the war, the World War. And he deals with that by protecting the people on tour in Africa. So it's a very involved character. Like I said, he's very brave. He reminds me of an Alan Quatermain kind of type. He has his companions with him from Kenya who help him protect the visitors, if you will, travelers in Africa. He meets this woman totally by mistake in the second episode. He's just sitting at a bar after having fought two leopards and almost being killed. One of his companions from Kenya got killed. And so he's just sitting in a bar drinking rather profusely. And this beautiful woman comes up to him out of nowhere and starts talking to him. And, he just, thinks it's weird, some weird lady coming up to him talking to him. And he finds out that he is very famous without knowing it. They know who he is, that he's Spencer Dutton, and he's a famous hunter or whatever. And he says to the young lady that, no, I'm not a hunter. I actually protect the people that are on tour here. I work for the preserve. I'm not here to hunt animals. I'm just protecting the people here. And instantly, she is thunderstruck with him. We learn that she is engaged to be married to some Englishman that's there in Africa with her. And it's kind of interesting what happens. She basically runs away from her own wedding and chases after Spencer, which is really kind of wild. He's like, going to another job, driving with his driver, driving the car to the next assignment that he has, and she's literally chasing after his car with her luggage in her hands. Reminiscent to me of Smokey and the Bandit. Don't ask me why I thought of that, but when I saw the scene, the first thing that came to my mind was Smokey and the Bandit, because that's very similar to what happens in Smokey and the Bandit. The bride is chasing after the bandit's car, and he lets her in, and that's pretty much, and the rest is history, right? So that is exactly what happens here. So I don't know what will come of it, because that's how the second episode ended, that way for Spencer's story. But having watched the show now for a few episodes, I really like Spencer out of the characters. Now, we have yet to meet Timothy Dalton's character, who is supposed to be a villain, and I can't wait to see him in this. He is also an excellent actor. So I'm waiting to see what, how his role is and his character is in this show, and I can't wait to see the next episode, to see if he's in it, and I hope he is. Now, so what do I think of the show? Right? I think it has excellent acting. Some of the characters I already like. I think, though, and this is a big though, I think Harrison Ford role is incorrect in the show. Okay, he's an 80-year-old man. He looks 80 years old. Okay, I'm just telling you. And for him to go around punching people and beating them up is a little bit too much for me to even understand, because looks far too frail and old to be able to do that. Okay? I mean, this show is a hard-hitting show and tries to hit you with reality. I don't know about you, but I've never seen an 80-year-old man beat up a guy in his 50s or 40s or anything like that. Okay? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think his character should have been a very powerful, head of the family who is not out riding on the range, beating people up. More of a guy who runs the ranch and orders people to go beat people up and do stuff like that. A power broker, a person behind a desk that's elderly but very powerful. That kind of command is what I think his character should be. But they have him in as like a John Wayne kind of character, and he's too old to do that. It's kind of ridiculous. Seeing him out there riding on a horse, I mean, I think it's great that an 80-year-old guy can ride a horse at all. I think that's fantastic. But, he's supposed to be playing a character that is a tough outdoorsman, cowboy, but at 80 years old, I mean, it just looks ridiculous at some point that, he's beating people up. It's just stupid. It's not realistic at all, okay, from that standpoint. So I think the writers kind of screwed up there. Outside of that, the show is extremely enjoyable. I think it's very good, especially compared to other shows on TV today, which are absolutely abysmal. I think that this rendition of Yellowstone is very good. I like it a lot. I actually think I like this better than the regular Yellowstone show with Kevin Costner in it. Just to be honest with you, I think I really like the character Spencer. Like I said, I think he's an Alan Quartermain type of character, and I really like it in the show. It's very refreshing to see that kind of character. And of course, I love the cowboy images of the West and everything. I think that's really cool too. And I really feel bad for the Native Americans and how they were treated. It's just awful. It's great, and I mean, I'm glad the writers of the show are showing that, because it's something that I think people need to remember and need to be shown. Out of 5 stars, I would give this show a 4.5. That's how good it is. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe. Tell your friends about it and have them subscribe. Hit the like button. Until next time.